well to this case, should we ask permission to approach the witness and opposing counsel?
No, as long as you present the form to the other side.
Yes, Your Honor. With that, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Thank you very much. And counsel for the defense, are there any further matters you'd like to discuss?
Just one, Your Honor. We'd like to make it known that the defense will be pursuing an affirmative defense, assumption of the risk. With that, we're ready to go.
And is the plaintiff ready to present her presentation?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
This case, the reason that you're all here today is because of what happens when a struggling corporation decides to put sales over safety. The defendant in today's case, the Lambert Family Carnival, otherwise known as the LFC, is a traveling carnival based right here in Murano. The way the defendant's company operates is simple. They set up shop in a small town, put a couple of tents together, hire some local talent, namely daredevils and magicians, to perform, before tearing it down, moving to a new city and doing the same thing over again. You're going to hear that that business model wasn't exactly working out for the defendant, that they were struggling financially, and it's because of those financial hardships. Well, the defendant got sloppy. They had employees on their payroll who acted dangerously, acted so dangerously. It ended up costing somebody their life. Because what this trial is really about, the story of one man. A man by the name of Maximilian. He was a magician, of course. He used to work for the LFC as a hired contractor. He would perform the evening shows at their carnival. He had one trick in particular that he would perform at the end, the grand finale. This trick, it was called the bullet catch trick. The name is so simple I hardly have to describe it. His assistant was to pull out a firearm, point it in his direction, pull the trigger, and through the power of magic, misdirection, but most notably through the use of a blank bullet, he was to survive completely unscathed. You'll hear today that that isn't what happened. Because on July 14th of last year, a year ago tomorrow, Mr. Maximilian died from a severe head injury as a result of that magic trick going not according to plan. When something like this happens, there's really only one question, and it's a question that only you all can answer. Who is responsible? That's why we, as the state of Murano in today's case, have brought forward a lawsuit against the defendant, the LFC. This lawsuit, we're suing for recklessness, and for us to succeed in that suit, there's 4 things we have to do. First, that the defendant owed a certain duty of care to Mr. Maximilian. Second, that the defendant breached that duty of care by acting with reckless disregard in regards to their safety. Third, that Mr. Maximilian suffered harm. And finally, that it was the defendant's breach of that duty of care that was the direct and proximate cause of Mr. Maximilian's death. Now, I understand that sounds like a lot. Sounds like we've got a lot of ground to cover. But we're going to do so through the use of 2 key witnesses. First, you're going to hear from an employee of the carnival, someone who's worked there for years. Somebody who can give you a first-hand account of the way the carnival functions. A disorganized mess where something like this can happen. Most notably, when he takes that stand, he'll be able to tell you that just hours before Mr. Maximilian's performance, he saw employees of the LFC using that prop gun meant to shoot blank bullets to shoot real live ammunition. You're also going to hear from the lead investigator in today's case, Ms. Tab Thorne. She works for the NBI, the Murano Bureau of Investigation. She works in the Financial Crimes Division. She was the lead investigator into Max's death. More than that, she actually worked as an undercover employee for the defendant. She worked there for months, and she can tell you about the day-to-day operations and how they were struggling financially, and how they created a workplace that enabled something like this to happen. That's why at the end of today's trial, I'm going to ask you to find the defendant liable for recklessness, and to make sure that they are never able to put sales over safety again. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor.
there's no such thing as a safe shop. You just heard a story. A story about the death of a magician, Maxim. But there's something that opposing counsel left out of that story. You see, he mentioned the cardinal. It was having trouble making money. But what he didn't mention, this is the owner of that card. She cared about that card. She cared about her employees. She cared about Max. But then one day she sat down with Max, they had a meeting, they talked about the fact that they weren't making money. That was when he had an idea. Maximilian said, well, I'll do a trick I've done before. Let's talk about how that trick really worked. So on one side of the stage stood Max. Max would have a bullet in his mouth. Wait. He was waiting because on the other side of that stage was his assistant. Max had his assistant point a gun straight at his face and pull the trigger. Members of the jury, bullet or not in the gun, that's dangerous. We understand that's dangerous. If you point a gun at someone's face and you pull the trigger, something could go wrong. Because there's no such thing as a safe shot. That's why today, we the defense have elected to take on an affirmative defense. And Maximilian, he accepted the risks when performing this trick. He knew there was a possibility it could kill him, and he didn't anyways. Today, we just have to prove that to you by a preponderance of the evidence. Meaning, if we show it's more likely than not that that's true, then the plaintiff, they can't be there. We'll show that to you today. The defense will have two witnesses testify. First, Nick Snap. She'll take the stand, she'll tell you she was there the day that Max did his trick, the bullet catch trick that killed him. She also spent a lot of time at the carnival. She worked there. She knew Miss Legacy. She knew how much effort it took. She'll tell you everyone there talked about the bullet catch trick, about how it seemed dangerous, about how something could go wrong. Because that was the jury, everyone there understood. When you pointed gun at someone's face, something could go wrong, and this happened was playing out today. Next, Miss Lambert will testify. She'll tell you about her family's art, about how for generations her family owned it and passed it on, and finally it was in her hands. She just wanted to do what was best. Today she'll tell you she needed Max. She needed his magic trick. She needed him to bring in an audience because that was her plan to make money. Most importantly, members of the jury, she'll tell you about a conversation she had with him, a conversation where he knew something could go wrong that day, but he did it anyways because he cared about the audience so much. Members of the jury, his death, it was a trap. There's no such thing as a safe shot. Why at the end of today's trial, we'll ask that you find the carnival not liable. Thank you. Thank you.
Does counsel for the plaintiff ready to present your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. And at this time, the plaintiff would like to call Mr. Utah Nugent.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the board?
Well, hi, my name's Utah Ulysses Uriah, but my mama just calls me She says it's easier to shout out once I've gotten into some trouble I'm not supposed to be in.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm currently gainfully employed at MIT, or Murado Institute of Technology, as a humble janitor, pays the bills. But starting in 2017, I was working with the LFC, or Lampert Family Carnival, as a daredevil.
Before we get into it, why are you testifying for today?
Well, along with the fact that I was working at LFC up until Max's final trip on July 14th, the state had offered me a plea deal in exchange for my testimony on the text case.
And what was the nature of your work with the LFC?
Well, like I mentioned before, I was the headline and daredevil, but I didn't start out that way. I got to work through my ranks. So starting in 2017, I was working as the assistant to the current daredevil. In 2019, I finally got my big shot. I was working as the daredevil up until 2023, back in May, when a certain little incident happened.
Incident? What incident are you referring to?
Well, as I mentioned before, I got into a little trouble with the law. My mama raised an honest man, so I'll be straight with y'all. I got into a friendly little racing match with my friend Vic, and I got the not so friendly glare of the red and blue flashing lights. Long story short, I wrecked my lovely car Bessie and broke my left leg.
Did that affect your work at LFC?
Well, you can't really be a daredevil while wheeling down the road. I probably could have put some flames on the sides of my wheelchair, but that's beside the point. Legacy then downgraded my position at the time. I worked as the ticket handler, and also my pay was decreased to below minimum wage.
Who's Legacy?
Oh, yeah, Legacy Lambert. She's the owner of LFC. I mostly knew her as the woman getting in between me and my stunts, but that's who she was.
And you just mentioned that you got paid below minimum wage. Do you know why that is?
Well, I can't be 100% sure, but starting in June of 2023 and onward, there were a lot of things I started noticing at LFC. The prop manager, Angel Ashmore, her two assistants were laid off. There were a lot of maintenance issues occurring, tents need to be replaced. Let's just say there were a couple Band-Aid fixes.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. Have you heard? The witness just testified that he saw maintenance issues. There's no foundation on the record as to how this witness, a daredevil, would be able to identify what constitutes a maintenance issue at a carnival. He can testify to his stunts, not the equipment, what is required to maintain it properly.
Your Honor, if I may, this witness has testified that they have worked at the Lampert Family Carnival and they've seen what's gone on behind the scenes. I don't think it requires additional foundation to testify to a maintenance issue. It's pretty apparent, and in this witness's rationally based perception, to say what a maintenance issue is and is not. It's not allowing him or causing him to testify to anything outside of his rationally based perception. But I think that is the foundation itself, that he worked there and personally observed behind the scenes.
If I may, did you ever work in maintenance?
No, you won't.
I'm gonna sustain the objection.
Motion is strike.
From this point on, if I sustain, just know that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you mentioned Angel Ashmore. Can you speak more about that?
Of course, Angel Ashmore was the prop master down at LFC. Now, my mama told me not to speak ill of others, but me and Angel never really saw eye to eye. What I can tell you is Angel's job as prop master was maintaining and buying the particular props used for various acts, including all the acts for Maximilian.
And what can you tell us about Max and his time at LFC?
Well, after I'd broken my leg, I had a couple conversations with Legacy about hiring Max to replace my show. And starting on June 1st, Maximilian was performing stunts in front of crowds, performing magical acts in front of the crowd. My apologies. And he wasn't no unbreakable youth, but I found it pretty entertaining. But those acts, they seemed pretty tame to me personally, up until I started seeing flyers for the July 14th, 2023 show.
And what was different about that show?
Well, in particular, Legacy and the LFC, they were advertising a trick called the bullet catch trick. From my understanding, that trick involves the assistant, I believe her name was Gabby Gray, shooting a blank bullet directly at Maximilian from about 30 feet away.
And from your observation, were there ever any guns on the LFC grounds leading up to that show?
Well, yes. In fact, I actually saw a gun on July 13th, 2023. the day right before the actual trip. We were having a little get together at the time. My friend Moon got all the LSC employees together for some drinking. On account of my broken leg and the medication I was taking, I didn't partake, but I saw Angel, who already had 1 or 2 beers at the time, bring out a lockbox and suggested shooting.
And did Angel bring out the gun?
Well, she did. She opened up that lockbox, took out a Glock 22. I sound like a hit, but the only gun toter in my family was my dad, and loaded it up with bullets and started taking shots at beer bottles.
Would you recognize that lockbox and a gun if I were to show it to you?
Of course.
Your Honor, permission to approach the opposing counsel, the witness, exhibit 4 and 5. Mr. Uden, I believe you have exhibit 4 and 5 in front of you.
I'll do right here.
And can you tell us what that is?
Yes, Exhibit 4 looks a lot like the gun that I saw Angel handling on July 13th.
And what's exhibit 5?
Well, Exhibit 5, it's a picture of the lockbox that I saw Angel handling on that same night.
Yes.
Of course.
At this time, the plaintiff offers exhibit 4 and 5 into evidence. Pursuant to stipulation 14, all objections have been waived to these evidence. Now, you said they were shooting beer bottles. Were they using live ammunition?
Of course, you can't really shoot at beer bottles with blanks.
And would you recognize the bullet if I were to show it to you?
Of course.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness and opposing counsel with exhibit 8. Mr. Uden, what did I just hand you?
Well, right now what I'm holding is a bullet that looks awful similar to the bullets that Angel was loading into the gun on July 13th. And I know in particular, this bullet was found amongst a bunch of other bullets in the prop tent on July 15th, the day after that trip.
Objection, Your Honor, foundation as to how this witness knows that. That foundation should come first before the opinion.
Yes, Your Honor, pursuant to stipulation 16, if I could turn your attention to that.
Go ahead.
Stipulation 16 states that exhibit 8 was found on July 15th inside Lambert Family Carnival's prop tent alongside other identical bullets. The following witnesses are aware of that fact and they testify to as such: Angel Ashmore, Legacy Lambert, Emery Eberhardt, and Tempest Strap. And because of this witness said that it looks similar to the bullets that were used during the get-together that they had, and that is enough foundation. Second, Your Honor, the bullet doesn't actually have to be the identical one in order for this to be relevant and enter into evidence. It simply needs to look similar, and for the jury to see that and to know that. That's why we're trying to enter into evidence.
Response. This witness was not included in the list of witnesses opposing counsel just read. In this stipulation, it does not say that this witness knows that information. And if he's saying he does, he should say how first.
May I respond briefly, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, the point of pointing out stipulation 16 was not for foundation of this witness. It's to point out that this court already knows that this bullet was found in the tent, and it's confirmed by other witnesses. Further, I responded by saying that this witness said it looked similar to one that was used in the prop tent. That is the foundation we need in order to enter this into evidence as something relevant for the juries.
Unfortunately, because you cited to that stipulation in particular, that cites the specific witnesses, I'm gonna have to sustain this objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, heard, both sides. Thank you.
Now, did you ever talk to Angel Ashmore about the gun?
Well, yes, I did. That night I mentioned that gun, and all she really had to say was it was a recent acquisition for LMC.
Recent acquisition. Well, did you know of any other acts that required the gun?
Well, at my tenure at LMC, I never knew of any other firearm-based tricks other than that bullet catch.
And did you see the bullet catch trick on July 14th?
No, I didn't. I wanted initially to watch the act, but I'm sure glad I didn't end up. At the time, I was sitting at the ticket counter, and Lord, I watched the chaos that unfolded after that gunshot.
Do you know what happened during this?
Unfortunately, Maximilian, they passed away in the course of that act.
Thank you, Mr. Uden. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stott.
Start by talking about whether we should be trusting what you just told the members of the jury.
Sure thing.
You're testifying on a plea deal.
That's correct, as I said before.
The terms of that plea. You provide your testimony, right?
That's correct.
And in exchange, you go from facing 10 years in prison to just probation.
That's correct. Prior to today's trial, I reviewed that plea deal and accepted it with the same.
Yes.
As I said, it was yes.
That's a good deal.
Absolutely. My soul is a great boy.
You were thankful for that.
Absolutely.
Sir, one of the conditions in that deal is that what you say today has to be useful to these attorneys.
They reviewed my testimony and they decided to offer me that plea deal. I never really understood the legalese behind it, but that's what was told to me.
So I'm asking about what you do understand, and you understand that what you say today has to be useful to them.
Well,
Objection, speculation, if I may. Opposing counsel is asking this witness about the standards that their testimony must meet in the minds of the plaintiff attorneys. It requires this witness to enter the minds of the plaintiff attorneys to see if it's a requirement for their testimony to be quote unquote useful. This witness would have no knowledge about what the attorneys think about their testimony and what the attorneys would like out of this testimony, whether it be useful or otherwise.
Before you see, I don't think there was a question posed, so I'm just gonna warn counsel not to be argumentative.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but otherwise there was no question for you to object, but I understand. Okay, thank you, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you understand the language of your plea agreement is that what you say today has to be useful to plaintiff attorneys. That's what you understand, true?
I believe so. Again, not well versed in the lawyer world like y'all.
And if what you say isn't useful, you understand your plea agreement would go away. True?
That's not my understanding of my plea. No.
So is it your testimony that one of the conditions of that agreement is not that your testimony has to be useful?
Well, prior to my testifying today, they reviewed my testimony and already agreed to the details of my plea agreement. It's all done and dusted. I signed on the dotted line.
So I'm talking about the conditions of your plea agreement. If your testimony isn't useful, it goes away.
I wasn't told anything of the sort like that. No.
You recognize where you describe the conditions of your plea agreement, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
If you could flip to your affidavit in that binder right there.
Of course.
Let me get it up on my computer right now.
I'm right there.
You recognize that to be your affidavit?
I do.
Point of order, Your Honor, I'd like to be shown the line numbers that this witness is referring to before it is brought onto the record.
Yes. Lines 151 to 152. Use for it. Your affidavit,
That's correct.
signatures on the back.
Yes, right there.
You believe everything you said here is honest?
Yes.
Please read silently as I read aloud from lines 150 to 151. In exchange for assisting the state with all investigations into Legacy Lambert and LSC, which includes providing useful testimony for all prosecutions in cases against Legacy Lambert. I read that correctly, right?
Yes, you did.
Objection, Your Honor, to improper impeachment, if I may.
Was your answer yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, the question that opposing counsel asks is if your testimony is not useful, your plea agreement is moot. That is not what this line says. This line is talking about an exchange, about useful testimony and a plea agreement. The negation is not necessarily also true, and this witness doesn't have to attest to that. Being asked if their plea agreement will be moot or irrelevant if they're not useful is not related to these lines.
Response, Your Honor. It details what needs to be exchanged for his plea agreement. He provides his testimony, which includes providing useful testimony. And then it goes on, as determined by the attorneys bringing the case. That's the term.
So what's your point, counsel? At the end of the day, I feel like it's going a little bit too long in terms of the usefulness of this testimony. That's up to the trier of fact, correct?
According to what's described here, it's up to his attorneys. That he has to provide useful testimony as determined by plaintiff attorneys. The witness isn't agreeing, and we're establishing that that's actually the truth.
I would disagree. I think it's always presented enough to show that it was an agreement, so I'm gonna, sustain your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you do not want to experience going to prison, do you?
I don't think anybody does.
Let's talk about another reason why you're testifying today.
Of course.
You don't like Lambert Family Farm.
Yes, although they've provided me with a lot of opportunities, they've been blaming me for some of the stuff that happened.
So you think they fired you unjustly?
I do.
But you're this close to hating their prop manager.
I mean, hate is a pretty strong word. My mama told me never to say that word, but I don't really like it.
It's the word you would use.
No, I wouldn't say I hate her, but it's pretty close.
You think it's a win getting to testify against them.
That's correct.
Let's talk about whether Lambert Family Farm did prioritize safety. Because while you were a daredevil, you would frequently talk with your boss about danger versus safety.
That's right.
You would want to launch yourself through rings of fire.
That's correct. Whenever I brought up stuff like that, Legacy said, "Stop trying to make your tricks more dangerous. We don't have enough money to pay you that."
Your boss never allowed you to do dangerous things.
Yeah, because he didn't want to pay me for what it was worth.
He said, quit asking for danger.
Objection to improper character evidence by may be heard.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, opposing counsel is bringing up prior acts of Legacy Lambert and their careful consideration of danger, or in this case, the character trait would be safety, in prior occasions to prove that on July 14th, Legacy Lambert was also safe. In addition to that, pursuant to case law Arabello v. Stone, Rule 404 does apply to businesses in general. So opposing counsel bringing up prior acts of this witness's daredevil stunts to prove safety on July 14th is an improper use.
Response, yes, Your Honor, this is a permitted use of character evidence under 404B2. This goes to intent, what the company intended to do. Prioritize safety, not make their acts more dangerous.
Your Honor, I don't believe this is intent. This is simply the general state of the business, that it was safe. It's not about the intent, it's about the character of the business for being safe. That is not an intent, that is simply a character trait.
There's no legal objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
The boss always said, quit asking for more danger.
Yeah, he didn't have the money to pay me for more dangerous tricks.
That's a yes to my question. Talk about whether Max accepted the risks of his trip.
All right.
Because you talked with Max about the bullet catch trip.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Max said, I know it's dangerous.
Yeah, a bunch of LFC employees kept being like, "I want to try the bullet catch trick. I want to try the bullet catch trick." But Max was pretty certain that he didn't want anyone roughening up the actual tool that he was using.
So I'm going to redirect you back to my question. Max said, I know it's dangerous.
But yeah, that's what he told the LFC employees.
He said, even for a magician like me, I know it's dangerous.
That's correct.
He said, even if it's a blank cartridge in the gun, I know it's dangerous.
Yeah, that's what he said.
He said, I know someone can get hurt.
Yeah, he was trying to dissuade the LFC employees from fiddling with the gun.
He said, I know something could go wrong.
That's correct.
Max did that trick anyway.
He did do that trick. That's correct.
Nothing.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, may I inquire as to how much time is left?
Plaintiff counsel has 1 minute and 57 seconds.
Now, opposing counsel just got up here and asked about things Max said about the bullet catch. Did Max indicate any concern of bullet swapping?
No, I didn't hear anything about bullet swapping when talking to Max.
Did he ever say that swapping a blank for a real was a concern in his mind?
No, I never heard him talk at any point, honestly, about live bullets.
I want to go back to July 13th. Now, did you mention any substances being used during that meeting?
That's correct. Angel Ashmore, amongst others, while shooting that gun for drinking.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
No recross, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sorry.
That's
perfectly, thank you for the concern.
And I think the next witness will be the defense.
Yes, Your Honor, defense calls Nick's napkin. Would you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, I'm Nick Snack.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Nackey?
I'm what do you call a mentalist? I read people's minds.
How does that work?
Most people think that I live in the step deep into their soul. And like that, I know what you're thinking. How does that count?
Well, then, ma'am, how does it work?
Ever play poker before? All that stuff that your face does, tells, I pick up on all those tells, put the puzzle together and figure out what you're thinking.
How long you been doing that?
Long time, about 10 years.
Are you familiar with Lambert Family Carnival?
I am, yeah, I work for
What kind of work would you do for them?
the mentalist gig, pulled it up. The all-knowing mix. Better into it.
Let's talk about whether the Lambert Family Carnival cared about safety for acts like yours. Were you there to see the facilities at the carnival?
Sure, I work there, I was there every day.
What were things like when you first started there?
Not great, it was a little messy.
Have things changed since then?
Absolutely, I mean, mind you, I've been there, what, 10 years now? It's a completely different environment.
How so?
What do I see? State of the art tents, you sit down on sheet seating, like this. And the advertisements for the best in town, it was really great, the legacy lamp came in.
Shaking proper character evidence on Your Honor, this witness is testifying to the state of the business before the trip took place. In this case, general order. I don't believe this falls under an exception like intent. It's a character trait of the business being used for propensity.
Response? This isn't in the past. This is the action we're actually talking about today. Plaintiff is alleging the facilities weren't in great shape, that caused them to cut corners. We're talking about what the facilities were like actually planning for that trip in particular. We're not offering anything in the past. This is what we're talking about, leading up to the bullet catch trip.
Your Honor, I believe I can't respond for time, but
I'm gonna overrule you.
yes, Your Honor.
Plaintiff counsel said this place was struggling financially. Have you ever experienced any pay cuts?
No pay cuts, no changes, everything.
Have you ever, in your 10+ years there, seen anyone get laid off?
Yeah, I can only really think of two, the assistants to Angel Ashmore.
Who is Angel Ashman?
Angel Ashmore is the prop master, he takes care of both props, we like to call him a little fix-it Felix, you know, you give him a prop and he gives it back to you, and spanking, it's great.
Have you ever seen Angel Ashmore make a mistake with one of your props?
No, I haven't seen him yet.
Do you remember seeing Angel Ashmore before that July 14th show?
Yeah, actually, just the night before there was a party. It's a work party. A party.
Well, okay, what happened during that work party?
You know, people were drinking, having fun. I see the crowds partying. Angel Ashmore's there.
What happened when you saw Angel Ashmore?
I started talking to him, but listen, that guy, he was so focused. Bullet catch this, safety that. I was like, come on, we're at a party. Let's take a load off, have a drink.
Would he have a drink?
He wouldn't even touch this stuff. That's when the whole reading minds thing kicked in. His skill is a bicycle. I mean, come on, you wouldn't have a free drink. What kind of person does that? Woof.
Daggy, let's talk about the claim.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Maximilian?
I am, he was another active con.
Did you ever interact with him?
Not really. Listen, the whole sawing people in half thing kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies, but I did talk to him.
When did you talk?
It was June 14th. I remember because I was at the salon that day. I had to take care of. So I tell the girl 1 inch. I walk out of that place looking like my niece. Had fucking scissors. I'm so sorry. Had scissors. I mean, it was a mess. I had to go to the doctor. I'm so sorry. He fired me.
Okay,
In my
so then you get to the
I
firing
was so,
range.
yeah.
What do you see at
With
the,
ends, I know.
Oh no.
what do you see at the firing range?
I see Max.
What happened when you saw that?
We start chatting.
What did you chat about?
Well, it was fitting for the environment, you know, we had guns around, so we started talking about the guns, and he's a magician, so magic, guns and magic.
What about guns and magic?
I was curious, I asked him if he ever dabbled in mixing the two of them together.
What did Max say when he asked if he ever mixed guns with his magic?
I said, just once, twice, he usually tries to avoid it.
Why did Max say he tries to avoid mixing guns with his drinks?
He told me, number 1 rule about using guns, don't point it at something you don't want to.
Thank you, Matthew. Nothing further.
Cross-examination of Mr. Witness.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to start by talking about that party you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you were there, of course,
I was there.
and you just testified that Angel Ashmore was there.
That's right. Yeah, he was there. The circus folk were there. He spoke with everyone was there.
And this wasn't exactly a PG party, right?
Talking about the drinks.
I'm talking about the drinks, and there were drinks there, right?
Some drinks there. Some circus folk wouldn't believe it. They get so crazy sometimes.
Exactly. The circus folk, they get so crazy. And in fact, there was scotch that you brought for the group, right?
I did. That's what I offered Angel. Some favors.
Right, so people in the group were drinking.
Sure.
Now, on direct examination, you testified that Angel didn't take a drink.
No, I didn't see any of that.
You said that Angel was being really careful and diligent, right?
I mean, he seemed focused.
Let's talk about how much you actually remember from that night.
Okay.
Because, man, you had a lot to drink.
Yeah. Why not?
In fact, your memory of the night is a bit fuzzy.
I don't know how I ended up face down on the poker table. I really don't. I don't.
Right, you ended up face down on the poker table, is that what you said?
That's true.
You passed out. Yeah. Because of the drinks.
Well, hopefully it wasn't like a medical thing.
Well, you would say you passed out because you were drunk.
Yeah.
And you were so drunk that you woke up the next day violently hungry.
I had to get some hungover care ASAP.
Yeah. So you had no idea what people at that party were doing from the time that you passed out to the time you woke up.
No, I can just tell you what I saw.
So if Angel Ashmore wasn't being as diligent as you testified to, while the time you were passed out, you couldn't tell us anything about that.
I'd be unconscious. I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Even my mental instincts aren't that good.
And if something happened during that time you were passed out with the other circus people, would you be able to tell us about that?
No.
I just want to talk a little bit more about your state of mind.
Okay.
You'd say you were in no condition to drive.
What, that night?
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd also say you were probably in no condition to put a gun in.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not wise.
Speaking as a person with common sense, it's probably not wise to shoot a gun with a truck.
That seems like a big no-no to me. Yeah.
I want to talk a bit more about why you might be testifying. as you said, you're a mentalist.
I am.
I hope you can't read my mind, but you're a showman, right?
I'm thinking of something.
You're a showman, correct?
I'm a performer.
And you'd say that your acts are a little more popular than the other acts at the LFC.
I don't mean to blow, but they did have to give me a separate tent because I'm so famous.
In fact, you go far enough to say that you are the best performer out there.
Thanks.
And you would say that you owe your entire career to Lambert Family Farm.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I started my act there, got famous there.
And you'd say that the only real barrier to that company is this lawsuit.
Yeah, I'd say that.
And you believe that if they, your boss, are not found liable, your career can get back on track.
Yeah, sure.
Because now, after this lawsuit was brought, your gig started getting canceled.
Yeah, you know, I had something lined up with Jimmy Fallon and he just canceled on me this morning.
Right, you used to be on SNL,
Yes.
The Review.
Review, SNL, I had all the gigs lined up.
But after this lawsuit, that wasn't the case.
No,
Now, your entire career has been because of Lambert Family, right?
I mean, listen, a lot of the gig is myself, but yeah, Miss Lambert, she really gave me some others.
And now you're testifying on behalf of defense.
Sure.
And man, you define yourself as someone that pays their debts.
You know, my mom raised me to be a good person. I think that's important.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
And you redirect.
Briefly, would your relationship with Lambert Family Farm ever cause you to be dishonest?
No.
Was the testimony you gave there?
Yes, you know, I swore on the Bible.
Thank you, ma'am. No.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Anna.
you.
Hope this weather and split out.
Oh, I got it too.
I do this 10-minute break at this point. What time do y'all have? Or what time she rush?
1:15.
Okay, so 1:25, we'll be back.
I'm not sure, I would imagine it probably more. Yeah. If you wanna give from behind.
It's never on time. They're like, all right, we'll be back at 5. It's like, goes on the record at 6:19. Back on the record at 6:32. Like, no break, it's never over.
Okay.
I assume that's fine. Yeah, nice. Sorry. So anytime, yeah, we buy each other's kids' braces. For each other. And we both class action, securities fraud. So we got problems, not sewage. Maybe
Ready to present our next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. This time the plaintiff calls investigator form to the stand. Permission to proceed? Ma'am, could you introduce yourself?
Of course. Hey there, my name's Tab Thorne.
Tab, what do you do for a living?
I'm a financial investigator with the Murado Bureau of Investigation.
Well, how'd you get into that line of work?
Started out as a beat cop, straight out of high school. Eventually, I was able to work my way up the ranks. I became a detective in the white collar crime division of the Butler Police Department. After that, I moved and I worked with the FBI, and that's what I'm doing today.
Investigator, you've been sitting with us in court today. Can you tell us why?
I'm actually acting as a party representative for the estate of Mr. Maximilian.
Investigator, are you related to Mr. Maximilian?
No, sir. Unfortunately, Mr. Maximilian didn't have any living relatives.
Well, then how exactly did you come to represent him in this case?
As an employee of the state, I talked with the public administrator for Gill County, who appointed me.
How'd you come to find out about Mr. Maximilian's death?
Well, I actually wasn't investigating him. I was investigating the Lambert family carnival.
Why were you investigating the Lambert family farm?
During my time with the FBI, I started receiving some anonymous tips.
When exactly did those tips start?
That would have been in the spring of 2023. Got a call from some woman, said her whole family got food poisoning at the carnival.
Did you investigate that?
No, sir. At that point, that was more of an issue for the health department, so forwarded along the complaint to them.
Was that the only tip you ever received about the defendant's carnival?
No, sir. In May of 2015, when the carnival got to town, started receiving some more tips. Issues with the rides, the food, the workers, even some complaints of some gunshots, but we didn't have enough to tie that to a financial investigation until June, where I got a tip when an informant said the finances, they were affecting the function of the park. And at that point, my supervisor, he agreed to let me go undercover inside the park.
Did you ever get any tips about Mr. Maximilian's death?
No, sir. No tips, no concerns of danger or anything.
You just mentioned that you were undercover at the park. What did that entail?
It was surprisingly easy. Applied for a job there, and I was hired immediately.
Do you have any kind of background check?
No, nothing, not even an interview. The Bureau, they provide us with fake credentials just in case we need them. I mean, I'd come up with a whole story about how I went to school in the county over, how I played lacrosse there, but I never needed any of it. I applied online and I was hired the next day.
Did your investigation uncover anything of note with the defendant's finances?
Nothing exciting. It didn't seem like the trials were like matching their business filings, but it wasn't clear if that was due to a recent downturn in business or just being in a smaller town.
What exactly can you tell us about how the park was at that time?
There was real little in the way of setup. It was kind of a disorganized mess. I was hired to run games, but really I just spent my time running from booth to booth, trying to help out anywhere I could. I mean, my poor buddy Utah, he was stuck working with ticket sales. He didn't even get a lunch break. I had to bring him something every day. He ended up calling me his park mama.
Well, ma'am, I'd like to turn your attention to this case in particular. Were you working at the park the day that Max died?
I was.
See that?
I did. As a law enforcement officer, you train to encounter any number of horrible events. But sir, that day's burned into my memory. The screaming, the blood, keeps me up at night.
I'll back up for just a minute. Earlier when you were talking, you mentioned that you're a police officer. Do you have any experience with firearms?
Of course. During my time in the academy, I was trained extensively on firearm safety, how to maintain your weapon, how to properly hold it, how to store it away from live ammunition, how to store it safely.
Did you recognize the weapon used in Mr. Maximilian's death?
Yes, sir. I saw it in the prop tent in the days leading up to the show. I recognized it immediately as a Glock 22.
Would you recognize an image of that gun if you saw it today in court?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to direct witness's attention to exhibit 4 on the minor. go find it at the back. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there, sir.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, sir, this is what I saw in the prop tent and with the armor in the days leading up to the show.
Is it the same as the last one?
Yes, sir.
At this time, can you move to board evidence?
I believe all objections to this have been waived, so.
Now, can you describe the gun to the jury in that image?
Well, yeah, you can see here that there's some scuff marks, so it doesn't look like the new version that I would have been issued in the academy.
Can you describe the condition of that weapon?
Sure, I mean, based on the scuff marks, looks used.
Do you know how a firearm like that is loaded?
Well, of course, sir.
Could you explain to the members of the jury?
Sure.
Could you offer opinion at this time? May I be heard, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Your Honor, given that this case centers around the safety of a firearm, having the investigator form walk us through how this firearm should be loaded is an improper opinion at this time. She's a financial investigator. We haven't heard any qualifications specifically on firearm training for safety as it would pertain to this gun and this car.
Your Honor, that foundation is absolutely been laid, but first, we don't agree that this is an expert opinion. Under Rule 701, witnesses are allowed to give opinions based on the rational basis presented. We've already laid the foundation that the investigator worked for the Buckler PD in 2015, and then moved to be a financial investigator. She spoke to the jury and told them that she used a firearm in her daily operations of her job. She can certainly testify to how a weapon is loaded. That is not an expert opinion.
Yes, Your Honor.
Investigator, can you tell us how that gun is loaded?
Yes, sir. Could you actually bring me those Jenga blocks over there?
Absolutely, permission to approach.
Thank you. Now, I didn't think Your Honor was gonna appreciate me bringing a real gun to court, so this was the best that I could do. But a semi-automatic weapon like a Glock 22, it uses a clip for loading. You take the clip out of the weapon like this, and you load it kind of like you would a Pez dispenser. You load the bullets in the same fashion that you load cannon. You go one by one, just like this, until that clip's full, and then you insert it back into your firearm.
Now, were you in court today when Utah Odom testified?
Yes, I was.
Were you here when Utah said that they saw Angel Ashmore firing this weapon?
Yeah, that caused significant alarm for me as somebody who works regularly with weapons.
Why?
Because in a semi-automatic weapon like a Glock 22, even if you load that clip with blanks, if there's been live ammunition used in the past, a bullet automatically loads into the chamber. So even if the Carnival's armor had checked to make sure this was filled with just blanks, it's possible that a live round was still right here in that chamber.
Your Honor, this is an improper opinion. She's using one fact about a gun to make a conclusion about what happened in this case.
What is your objection?
That this is an improper expert opinion, Your Honor. The rules of evidence in Morado lay out that in order to make an expert conclusion, you have to meet several qualifications under Rule 702. We haven't heard that foundation for this witness, and so she would only be able to testify through a rationally based perception. I believe this goes further than that.
But I believe counsel said just recently that this is not an expert that we're trying to present, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. She's a rational based perception. She's worked with firearms for an entire career as a police officer. She's just testifying to what she learned in the academy.
Your Honor, I'm objecting specifically to the testimony of even if the armorer had checked the gun, something still could have gone wrong. That's the conclusion I'm objecting to. I believe that is a specific conclusion about this.
I don't know if we'll get judged.
Yes, Your Honor.
Finish what you were saying.
Yeah, even if this clip was double checked, that doesn't mean there wouldn't be a live round right here.
Now, you also mentioned that you were on the scene at the time of Max's death. As an officer, did you investigate?
No, sir, it was a jurisdictional issue. I did break my cover, like I mentioned earlier, to try and maintain order. I showed my badge. People seemed real freaked out. But I was able to sit in on the interview with Legacy Lamp.
What did the defendant say during that interview?
Said she wished she'd never forced Max to do this.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Investigator Thorpe.
Good afternoon, counselor. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I want to start by talking a little bit more about legacy land. Now, you told us on direct examination that you started investigating her because you received an anonymous tip.
That's right, I did.
But you'd actually investigated legacy land before that tip.
That's right. I investigated legacy once with the Boca PD in 2015, and then once again in 2023 with the Morado Bureau of Investigation.
Ma'am, I want to talk through that timeline between 2015 and 2020.
Sure.
You started by investigating legacy land work with the Butler Police Department.
That's right. I was still with them in 2015.
It was a financial investigation.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
When you looked into Miss Lambert's finances, you found no evidence that anything was out of order.
That's right. In 2015, that's correct.
You'd say there wasn't a decimal difference.
I would.
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevance at this time. She's asking the witness about a former financial investigation that has no merits in this case. Yes, we agree that there was a second financial investigation in 2023, which led to her being undercover. But in this case specifically, Agent Thorne is acting as the party representative for Maximilian's estate. We are not alleging any financial fraud in this case.
Response.
Well, I just have a question. I
Yes.
thought that relevance objections were, when I said that was a character.
They're waiting for someone, it's confusing. My line of questioning here isn't to establish that there wasn't anything wrong with these finances. If I'm improper,
But
I'm about to ask this investigator that despite the lack of evidence, they continued pursuing their investigation, even though their captain ordered them to stop. This line of questioning goes to the bias they have against Legacy Lambert, not financial evidence specific.
I don't know what the objection.
So maybe you'd agree you found there wasn't a decimal evidence.
That's right.
And so your captain gave you a direct order to drop that investigation into Miss Lambert.
He did. He told me to stand down, but I had a lead and I wanted to do what was right and follow it, even if that meant putting my badge on the line.
You had a lead and you wanted to do what was right to follow it. Ma'am, you thought there was someone doing an inside job to cover up for Legacy.
I sure did.
Now you thought that, because the only alternative option was that Miss Lambert was clean.
That's right. Miss Lambert was not clean.
Ma'am, despite there being no evidence, you refused to believe that Miss Lambert was clean.
There was evidence. I had my lead.
Other than that lead, you refused to believe Miss Lambert was clean.
That's right. Miss Lambert wasn't clean.
Because you ignored that direct order, you were fired from the police department.
I was. Then I moved to Morado Bureau after that, and that's who I'm with now.
When you moved to the NBI, you once again requested to look into Legacy Lambert.
I did. I submitted an initial request in May.
Your bosses denied that initial request.
They did. At that point, we had that tip about food poisoning, but we didn't get anything to connect it to financials until June. At that point, they greenlit the investigation.
Ma'am, in 2023, something changed, or Carnival came back to Butler.
That's right. Came back into our jurisdiction.
And so when they came back to Butler, you once again requested to investigate Legacy Lambert.
Exactly. That's what I did, and I went undercover in the park after that.
But actually, your initial request in 2023 was denied again. That's right.
Exactly. We still didn't have enough to connect it to that financial investigation until that tip in June that I was talking about earlier.
That's right. It was only after an anonymous tip that your bosses greenlit your investigation into Legacy Lambert.
Objection, compound question.
Sorry?
Compound question, Your Honor. I just asked that opposing counsel to put the questions up.
Well, could you repeat? Question was like, this what was it?
Yes, Your Honor. I was just asking that after she got an anonymous tip, her bosses greenlit the investigation. Just two events.
Yeah, I'm no opposed to objection. Go ahead. If you don't understand though, you can ask for clarifying.
All right.
And then after you got that anonymous tip, your bosses greenlit the investigation.
That's right. At that point, we had the reasonable suspicion we needed to start that investigation.
I want to take a moment to talk about that anonymous tip. Right here today, you can't tell us how you received that tip.
No, ma'am, I can't remember. It was almost a year ago, and we were receiving a lot of tips at that time.
You don't remember if you got a phone call?
That's right. Exactly. I couldn't tell you if it was phone call or via email. Not quite sure.
You don't remember if it was a phone call or an email? That's right.
That's right.
You can't tell us much else about the tip except that you were.
Well, I can tell you, it was the informant telling me that the finances of the carnival were impacting the functioning of the park.
We're gonna talk about what happened after you went undercover. Maybe you told us a lot about a gun on direct examination.
Yeah, that was the block 22 that I saw in the prop tent.
Now, you told us that you were pretty busy when you went undercover running between tents back and forth on.
Oh, yeah, yes, ma'am, it was a disorganized mess. I mean, I was just trying to pick up the slack anywhere I could.
You were picking up the slack anywhere you could, so you weren't staying in the prop tent all day.
That's right, I was set to run games, so I was in my little game tent, had a little fishbowl with a ping pong ball.
Ma'am, you weren't working with the carnival's armor.
That's right.
You weren't with those props all the time.
No, not all the time, ma'am. I just saw it and I recognized this block.
You don't know when the carnival's armor would have cleaned that up.
Well, come to think of it, I didn't see her clean it at all. I just kind of saw her hold it and smile. It was a little weird.
You just told us you never saw her clean it at all, but you were only in that prop tent for 15 to 20 minutes per day, right?
That's right. While I was in there, I saw Ashmore holding the gun, but with a gun like that, if you're gonna use it, you should be disassembling it, cleaning it.
That's yes to my question, 15 to 20 minutes a day.
That's right.
You don't know what was happening for the rest of the day in that prop.
Oh, of course not.
I'd like to end by talking a little bit more about Max. And you agree with me, you aren't a magician yourself.
No, ma'am. Unfortunately, that's not part of my skill set.
So you couldn't tell us what a magician would reasonably know about a trick like the Gauntlet.
No, ma'am, I couldn't tell you.
You don't know how dangerous this trick is to a magician.
Well, seeing as that they pointed the gun right at his face, I'd say it's pretty dangerous.
You'd say it's pretty dangerous. So maybe it would be reasonable a magician would understand it was pretty dangerous.
I have no idea, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor, I would just like to approach and retrieve the demonstration.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Want a toy gun?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't. With that, the defense, final witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls legacy member. Okay, good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury? Hello? I'm Legacy Lambert. Ms. Lambert, why are you here today?
I'm here because I'm being sued. That's why I'm here.
What are you being sued for?
One of the people who was working for me died. So I'm being sued by his estate because they say that I didn't create a safe environment for him.
What business were you running?
I owned a carnival. It's called the Lambert Family Carnival. Lambert has been in my family for generations.
I'd like to talk a bit more about that carnival. How long have you been working for your family's carnival?
My whole life. I mean, we lived on the carnival property, so really, ever since I was a kid, I mean, I was helping move popcorn, unpack boxes, but when my parents passed away, it was when I took over as the owner. That's when it became my job to keep it going.
Where was the carnival grounds?
For a long time, we were traveling. Carnival when I was growing up, it was traveling. We would go around the United States, a bunch of small towns. But when I took over, money got tight. Gas isn't cheap. So I was looking to stay more permanently somewhere, try and recover a little bit financially, so we were involved.
It's like you were trying to help financially, how were you doing?
Bad. I mean, I had to lay people off, try and find ways to save money, really just however I could. And it wasn't going well, and I was scared.
Did you do anything to try and save your family?
I was doing everything I could. I mean, when we got to Buckler, I wanted to make our show more interesting, try and get more people to come in, buy tickets. So I hired a local magician. His name was Max. Apparently people loved him. I thought it might bring us some more money.
When you hired that new magician, did he sign a contract?
Of course, all my employees have contracts.
Would you recognize it if I were to show it to you?
Yeah.
Your Honor, let the record reflect an approaching opposing counsel and the witness with what's been admitted as exhibit 2. And I believe you have a copy, if you could flip to exhibit 2 in a minute. So, what was in this contract?
The contract was something I wrote up when I brought him on. Essentially, it goes over how many days a week he'll work, how much he'll get paid. Really, the most important thing that I like to put into my contract is just that he and his assistant understand that magic can be dangerous. I mean, I've worked with, a few magicians, and they will have crazy ideas sometimes, so I just like to make sure they understand that they're signing up to do some dangerous things.
Did it work? How did Max work for the company?
I mean, it was helping, we were getting a few more people, but I still didn't think we were gonna make it,
So what'd you do?
I talked to the guy who was renting us the fairgrounds we were on, just to see if there was any way he'd be willing to just extend the lease we were currently on with him. There were basically in that conversation 2 things. He said, if I could do it, we could stay longer.
And ma'am, what were those 2 things?
The fairground owner, he was really into Max, the magician, so he wanted him to perform a specific trick he had in mind, and then he wanted to be a full house when it happened.
Did you ever meet with Max to talk about this new plan?
Of course, I needed to meet with him to see if I could keep the carnival going. It was one of the first things I did.
Could you tell the members of the jury how that meeting
Went great, honestly. Met with him, and he brought up the trick, the bullet catch, what it was called, and there was a moment when he sort of started backing out. I said that I would sue him if he backed out, and he, agreed to do it. So it was great.
How is this trick supposed to work?
I mean, it's a dangerous trick. Essentially, a magician gets shot in the face with a gun, but instead of dying, like he would, second half and get shot in the face, somehow they pull the bullet out of their mouth. I mean, it's obviously very dangerous, but when done correctly, it's pretty cool.
And what did Max need to do to her?
He needed a gun, bullets, blanks.
How would he communicate with you what he needed?
He would talk to our prop master, and they would send us over an expense report, which is everything they wanted to buy.
Was there an expense report for the bullet catch tricks props?
Yeah.
Would you recognize that and show it to you?
I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect on approaching opposing counsel and the witness with what's been previously marked as exhibit 3. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, this is the expense request, just listed everything Max wanted us to get for him, and then what I ended up getting.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of that request?
Yeah.
Your Honor, the defense offers exhibit 3. So can you talk us through what he was requesting here?
Max, he wanted it to be a nice trick. He wanted a new gun, new blanks, bullets.
Objection is speculation, so he wanted it to be a nice trick, he speculated that Max is wise. The last two things you said were strange with that first one.
Your Honor, simply she's reading this request form, what was requested was things that she is saying are nice. She's not speculating into his mindset and what he wanted, rather saying he wanted nice things, a new gun, new blanks, new bolts. Yes, sir. So what do you want?
He wanted new gun, blanks, bullets, but couldn't afford it. I mean, what he wanted, we couldn't make it as nice as he wanted it to be. It wasn't going to be exactly what he wanted to happen.
So what you got instead?
What we ended up getting was a gun from the local gun club, got the blanks and bullets from the same place, but I wanted to make sure that Max knew what he actually was getting.
So did you tell him?
Of course. The day before he was supposed to do the trick, I mean, at that point, the blanks hadn't even arrived yet, so I figured I should probably, level it and tell him where we were at. I told him the blanks, we didn't have them yet, they were probably gonna come from the gun club. Same place he got his firearm. I asked him if he still wanted to do the trick.
And what did Max say?
Max said he didn't want to let the audience down. He said he was going to do the trick. He knew what we were able to give him. It wasn't as much as I wanted, it wasn't as safe as I wanted, but he knew. And we talked about it.
Man, how that trick done?
Horribly. He died.
Could it save the carnival?
Of course not. No, I don't have the card.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, that's correct.
Sorry. Yeah, you've been with us today.
Yeah. Setting up.
Were you paying attention to whenever some pre-trial matters?
It's, paying attention. I'm not a lawyer, worked in Cardinals my whole life, so I don't know exactly what everything meant, but I've been paying attention, obviously.
But you did hear my co-counsel say that your employees were vicariously liable for your actions, or for their actions, you're vicariously liable with.
Yeah, basically, honestly, leading up to this, I, talked to all my attorneys. They explained to me basically, since they're suing my company, that includes basically anything my employees did, I'm also responsible for, is sort of my understanding.
Exactly, you're responsible for what your employees did, right?
Yeah,
So you were here throughout all of today's trial.
yes, of course,
You heard all those witnesses get up on the stand and testify, right?
yes, been here all day.
There was one particular thing that stood out to me, and I was trying to ask you about it.
Okay.
You didn't testify, right?
Yes, he was one of my employees.
And you saw one of your current employees, Nick Matt, testify, right?
Yeah,
So they both told a similar story about a party, correct?
they were talking about a party the first night I ever did it.
Well, they said that party was on the premises of Weber Family Farm, right?
Maybe, I couldn't remember exactly everything they said.
Were you paying attention, man?
Yes,
You understand your company's being sued?
yes,
You understand it's a good idea to pay attention to the witnesses that your own attorney calls, right?
yes, and I was.
All right, so do you remember when both of those witnesses talked about it?
Yes,
Now, you heard Utah, you didn't say that people were drinking on the premises, right?
that's what he said. I wasn't there, I didn't know.
You heard him say that your employee Angel Ashmore was drunk, right?
Yes,
You heard him say that Angel Ashmore was firing the weapon used in Mac's bullet catch trick the day before the show, right?
what he said,
With live ammunition, right?
that's what he said, he's the only one who said anything about it.
I just gotta ask your opinion on this. Do you think it's a good idea to shoot live ammunition out of a weapon used for a magic act?
No,
But your employees did it?
I don't know.
Calling Mr. Udin a liar?
I'm not saying he lied, I'm saying I don't have any proof that it did or didn't happen.
You also heard another one of your employees, Ms. Knapp, testify about that same party, right?
It's not, yes,
Oh, you heard Ms. Knapp testify about it.
yes,
You heard her testify that she got drunk and passed out, right?
on a poker table,
On the same premises that you run a business, right?
yes.
Are you in the business of letting your employees get drunk on the premises where you have dangerous props?
No, obviously not.
Then why are you letting them do it, Ms. Sniper?
Sir, this, if it happened at all, it's after hours, but I don't even know that it happened.
Even if it happened after hours, Ms. Lambert, there's still the props on the premises, right?
Yes, our props are on our property.
And one of those props was the firearm Max was supposed to use for, right?
Yes,
Now, you earlier on the record talked about a contract and exhibit 3, the eccentric code form.
yes,
Now, you actually selected the lowest cost option weapon for Max for that one, right?
I did, yes.
And you were in charge of purchasing all those props, right?
No,
Came out of your company budget, right?
yes, essentially I had a armorer and angel. It was their job to actually go out and buy all the things once I approved it. There's basically different price options. I would approve one of the price options, she'd go out and buy it.
Well, you selected the lowest tier option, which was a gun, a heavily used gun from a gun company, right?
It was just a purchased used gun, didn't have to be heavily used.
Well, the option you selected was under low price option, right?
Yes,
And next to that, it says purchased used gun from a local gun club or shooting range. Heavily used weapons will be steeply discounted, right?
Yeah.
You've seen the gun that Max used, right?
yes,
That's got a mark on it, right?
this one, Gauntlet.
Now, for the bullets, you selected the mid-price option, right?
It's what I selected, but essentially they weren't coming in the mail on time, there was delays, so we ended up going with the ammo from the gun club, which is the low price.
And you also talked about a contract, right?
Yes,
Here it says that your company, if they don't like the act, you don't have to pay Max a debt, right?
that's right. Essentially, since they were working for my company, I would approve all the tricks they were gonna do, and if they were going to do something insane and horrible, I didn't have to pay for it.
Right, but also if you wanted them to do something insane and horrible, and they didn't want to do it, you didn't have to pay them, right?
I don't have to pay them not to do things.
Man, if you wanted them to do the bullet catch and they said no, you could refuse to pay them, right?
Yes.
Based on the contract you wrote, I feel like you should have a good understanding of that, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm just confused by your question. If they don't do an act, I don't have to.
Ma'am, if they came to you and said they don't want to do the bullet catch, based on this contract, you have the ability to not pay them, right?
Yes,
Now, exactly what happened, right?
No.
You're telling us that Max wanted to do the bullet catch?
he was the one who brought it up first. Yeah,
Let's talk about that. You actually wanted Max to bring up the bullet catch act, right?
absolutely. I mean, I basically needed him to do it successfully in order to stay in business.
You needed Max to do the bullet catch to stay in business?
Yeah, honestly, he was the key to us sticking around.
Just asking you a simple question, yes or no. You needed Max to do the bullet catch to stay in business?
Yes.
No further questions.
Your Honor, ask how much time you have for your.
Defense counsel is 19 seconds.
Yes, Your Honor. We'll make it fun. Next. Slam, the opposing counsel just asked you a lot about the death tax. Did it help your carnival to have him dead? No. We needed the trick to be successful. Thank you, Your Honor, we've done.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Now we go up. Yep. The concept that says, the concept from the 24 ballot, round 2, your response has been reported. So once all 3 of us see that, then we can get. So since all of our ballots are submitted, we each give one comment to each of the witnesses.
We can all get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Salpao. I coach UC Santa Cruz, and for those who are not from California, that's about 6 hours north from here. This was a really fun round, both attorneys and witness-wise. Everyone did really great, so hopefully you're all really proud of your performances. At least in the last round, I don't know if your last round was, we did one comment per person, so we'll do that again. I don't remember the witness names, nor do I know your actual names. So the plaintiff character witness, I loved how bubbly, charismatic, and enthusiastic you were. I thought that was a really great light to the trial. So that was really awesome. For our defense character, you're so funny. You're so hilarious. And so that was really keeping us engaged. That was awesome. For our plaintiff party rep, I love how, first I love the Jacob demonstration. That was really fun. But I loved how into it you were. Like, I don't know how much of this is your own personal stylization versus like characterization, but it really felt like you were in character, both from the voice to the content to the dress code. So that was really awesome.
Thank you.
And very similarly for defense, you were so into this character that you were doing. It was really great that you were really consistent with that level. So that was really great.
So I'm commenting just on the witnesses or the...
Attorneys, if you want as well.
First of all, can I just say, good God, I've been a civil attorney, trial attorney for 35 plus years. You guys are awesome. I just can't tell you, just want you to know. A lot of real attorneys should come here and watch you. Let me talk about the plaintiff's witness, the character witness. You were great. One of the things that all of you, all the witnesses in general did is something that is so difficult to coach an actual witness, and that is to look at the jury. And you did it whenever questions were, all of you did, which was really, really good. I found you very folksy, and I found that I liked it a lot. So it was, I don't know if you were the most persuasive witness, but you certainly were folksy and you believed what you were saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you were great. For the defense witness, you are a hoot. And I thought you were really good. But again, you know, just looking at the jury was very, very effective, and I really liked that. And you all were really into your characters, which was also really incredible. As for the plaintiff's attorneys and defense attorneys, I can tell y'all like cross-examination witness much better than direct. I'm with that. That's the fun part. So you all, in terms of direct, were all very, very good. I like the what questions, the why, the when. You know, that's what, when you're on direct, you're limited to the what, why, when. You can't really lead a witness like you would on cross. Whereas on cross, you can lead a witness, and I thought cross-examinations were very, very well done on the plaintiff side. Defense side, really, really good as well. I don't really have anything negative to say about you guys. You're really so effective.
What do you do, by the way? You said you already said it, right?
Well, I was a trial attorney for 35 plus years. I'm not currently working as a lawyer. I'm in retirement. But, and I also did some criminal law, and I was also an appellate certified appellate specialist. So I've been did both state and federal. I was also licensed in Arizona. So I did state and federal in Arizona as well. And so I've been in a lot of courtrooms. I've been up against a lot of lawyers, against some very, you know, very, very big law firms, small firms. Plus, better yet, I've served on a jury. And I've picked a number of juries. So I've seen it all. And I'm just so utterly impressed. I hope some of you folks are planning on going to law school. I hope. Because, you know, we need good lawyers, no matter what they may say. We need a lot of good lawyers. But there are so many that
Howdy y'all, so I'm Roshanak Rushi, place Rushi in our trades here. I've been an attorney for 15 years. I've done workers' compensation and
for 14 years, I did defense, so I represented the insurance company and their employer against the injured boo-boo worker. And now it's been 1 year that I like to say I'm on the human side, and I represent the injured worker against them. My hat's off. I mean, I've done this a lot, like probably 7 times, but it wasn't this type where the emphasis was like on the witnesses and like, you know what I mean? And I'm really impressed. Now I'm gonna start laughing a lot about this. The plaintiff's attorney, I really did enjoy you. I don't know your name. You or who?
Utah.
No, sorry. Like I knew it was you or something. You were very much in character, just like she said. I don't know how much I relied on you per se, but you were so in character, like you know what I mean? And you were very consistent, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Of course. The next one, you were tricky because like you kind of were an expert, but then not an expert, and it took a lot of great questioning for them to be able to allow you to do both. So I like did an excellent job. You stayed in character, and you were legit somebody who people would want to trust and rely on.
Thank you.
So no, it was great. Defense, God damn, for a girl, see I was first. To say that you were real would be an understatement. Like, just even when I was sitting here, because I'm looking at everything, I'm watching y'all like your body language. I was focusing on you throughout the entire thing, and like your leg would, you know, I saw you kicking your leg. Like I thought you were on like some New York show, like the way you were, you know. So I really did appreciate how you stayed in character, even when that little thing happened. It legit fit with who you were. You know what I mean? And so, and you were also very good at cross because you were good at just not caring. Like you're like, hey, go ahead, ask. Yep. And yep, drinker, yep, drunk, like it was pretty darn believable. And I think there was a set of jurors who were tired at one point and annoyed that they were like using life to like sit here. You would wake them up because it was very, you know, deal. And then who was the last one? I actually didn't like you at the beginning because I just was watching you throughout the course of the trial, and I think it's very important if the defendant himself or herself is going to take that stand, you're going to want to pay a lot of mind to them. But when you started talking on the cross, I was like, it was just very easy for me to now look at this person and go, you know what? Could they have all the responsibility? I mean, the whole thing was difficult for you. Like I understood, like what control, we didn't know what control you had over the premises and if in a carnival. So I was sitting here thinking, well, where else would they drink? I assume people travel and they live on the carnival. So like if they're there, they're gonna drink, who's gonna watch? So all these things were coming in my mind, but you were very good at showing remorse without saying it was your fault. And I really appreciated that. All of y'all were great. One big thing I'll say though, for all of us, we're damn good when we were trying to be impeached. I mean, it was like, when you want to do leading questions, and the attorneys, by the way, fantastic. I would be scared to go against you. I would be scared to go against you. Like, honestly, she was completely right. But one thing I'll say is, when you're giving a leading question, the whole goal behind a leading question is to just get that outside witness to say yes or no. That's it. And the second that they go over that, you know, that boundary line, now they're able to actually go into a narrative, and maybe that'll help bolster whatever it was we're trying to impeach at the get, because they're speaking beyond that yes or no. So if you guys, the witnesses, all did a great job on not letting that attorney have control over you, it would be like, yes, and then you know what I was doing, I was like, and I'm like, okay, so then you're like lost in the whole yes or no. So all of you guys did a great job in supporting the theory, I think, of both sides. So excellent, excellent work. Like very, very proud of all of you guys.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was so fun.